naively, actually, Martin, because I think sometimes, and I think you're right to point this out, is to try and worship something. And I think there's a worship kind of thing about this NHS. You can't criticise it, and we can't discuss what the problems are. And there are huge problems with the NHS. I want people, to know the truth of what happened, because obviously on social media all sorts of stuff goes out that's not true. It can't remember what day it was, but we'd had a late night. It's Christmas. We'd had a late night and we'd had a few to drink. So we had a day where we decided to get out of bed a bit later, and I was in bed. And obviously not dressed, and there was a knock at the door, and I did hear the knock at the door. Being involved was the word that they've used. So it was unfortunately the second visit to this wonderful custody suite in Gloucester. And I say that sarcastically because it wasn't wonderful at all. I wasn't treated very well at all.
But you had someone contacted you, was it yesterday, a whistleblower, didn't you?
Yes.
What about that?
Yes, yesterday, obviously, because I've been perhaps putting out some public posts because I feel I have to with these situations, and I think it's essential, as much as you get the abuse from it, that we get a public, which is what we're all doing. We get that public message out. So I had a response from a private response from a ex NHS member of staff who lost her job literally a few weeks ago. She was sacked, and she wanted to tell me lots about what's going on in the NHS. The state or the government asks you to deny what's in front of your eyes and ears. There's a quote which always sticks in my mind, very, very scary, terrifying quote. And that's how I see what we're living in. As human beings, we have logical, critical thought. That's something that I think even as children we develop very quickly, is just looking at what's around us and saying, this is what's happening. And also, I think this is the important message from what's happened to me, and I hope people listen to this. Whether you agree with the COVID situation, that all that we're talking about is irrelevant, because what you should be looking at and very concerned with is that we've reached a point where the law and due process can be abused, where that boundary, which is essential to democracy in a free world, between your private space, your home, and the public space outside, doesn't exist anymore, which is what happened to me. It's like I don't have a private space now. You can come up to my bedroom.
You were violated big time.
No, it's as I keep saying to people, it's not a matter of choice. We have to do it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm really delighted today to be joined by Debbie Hicks, who many of you know has been pushed into the spotlight recently after investigating a local hospital, Gloucester Royal Hospital, where Debbie visited and showed scenes of very, very quiet activity there. And of course, things took a sinister turn for the worst when a few days later she was arrested. Absolutely horrible. But thank you very much for joining me, Debbie. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Actually, I'm fine. A lot of people are asking me, are you okay? And I am okay. I know it sounds a little bit strange, but I feel every time these things happen, I feel quite empowered from it. So
absolutely, and you've been inspiring to a lot of people. Let me ask you first, though, what really made you go down to your local hospital and take a look? What concerned you?
I could see that the propaganda, and I do call it propaganda, as we just discussed earlier, was building in the press about this second wave and the use of language such as a mutant virus, which I found quite disturbing to use that kind of language that's very terrifying for people. And just as I discussed earlier, I've been hearing for a long, long time that the hospitals are very quiet, that some hospitals are empty, that areas of hospitals are shut down. And I was very concerned. And then I think literally a day before, there was a report that Gloucester Hospital was very, very busy. And I'd heard literally just a few days before that it wasn't, because my husband, who has to go in for regular consultations for his arthritis, had been into the outpatients department, and he said it was very, very quiet. And he said that the staff told him that they've not got a lot to do because they're very quiet. So on the basis of all this, which is what I rely on, is reports from people, I decided to go down and just have a walk around, just to get a feel of what was going on. And It's I just wanted to sort of satisfy that curiosity of what's really going on, because I don't trust the newspapers at all. So.
Absolutely not. It's a very good question to ask. But I mean, we saw from the footage the car park seemed very quiet, and of course, when you walked into the building, I guess that was the outpatient area. There was hardly anyone there, just those two elderly ladies who were upset about you not wearing a mask, should I say.
Yeah. In fact, though, I did, and this is the thing, actually, because you couldn't see, because I wasn't filming myself, is I did actually have a scarf kind of like that. And I did, but I thought, I'm not going to argue with these ladies. So I said, okay, sorry. And I just, walked off. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then we saw further on as well, you went to the A&E ward, which this time of year you'd expect to be quite busy, but even that seemed very quiet.
Yeah. It's I mean, I've had a lot of criticism back, which I'm sure you've read, that what do you expect, it's Christmas, it's going to be quiet. But actually, no, I don't accept that. I've been into that hospital at Christmas before. I've been into A&E departments at Christmas before, and hospitals are usually very busy at this time of year. It's the time of year when people have accidents more. It's the time of year when, obviously, as we know, you get the seasonal flu outbreaks and they're overwhelmed. So on the basis of that, and on the basis of this idea that COVID is causing a huge problem, I was quite stunned, actually, at just how quiet it was. I think about 7 people waiting in A&E. I tried not to film their faces. I just sort of whizzed through. And as you could see, not really any staff around anywhere. So.
I mean, there was no security or anything, really. It looked like something off an apocalypse movie or something, was it? But we've seen recently, there's been many hospitals exactly the same up and down the country. So this wasn't a one-off, but you inspired other people to go around and check out their own. I know even in Swindon, I've had 2 eyewitness accounts from New Year's Day yesterday morning, that at one point, both the ICU and A&E were virtually empty.
Right,
and this is on the flip side, once again, though, what we're being told by the mainstream media. Do you think there's something quite sinister going on here? Yes,
I do. I do feel it's sinister. Because I think, if I can use the words of Orwell, I can't remember the exact words. I think it was from Animal Farm, actually, not 1984. I don't know if you've read Animal Farm as well. But there's something about, I don't know if it was, because obviously it was kind of references to communism, wasn't it, in Animal Farm? Something about the state or the government asks you to deny what's in front of your eyes and ears. It's a quote which always sticks in my mind. Very, very, very scary, terrifying quote. And that's how I see what we're living in. As human beings, we have logical, critical thought. That's something that I think even as children we develop very quickly, is just looking at what's around us and saying, this is what's happening. And we can see that, and I'm not questioning whether COVID exists or not, that's another debate, but we can see that whatever this is that's happened in the last year, 2020, is that most of us don't know of people that have died of COVID. You talk to people, most people don't know of anybody. If you do encounter people that have had COVID and you have a proper discussion with them, it seems to appear that for the vast majority of the population, it's not serious at all.
No.
It's kind of cold flu-like symptoms, which is something we've lived with for a long time. So on the basis of that, what we can see happening with friends and family in our communities, of course, what we're seeing in the hospitals, which is what I was doing, that to me is the truth in front of my eyes and ears. And then I'm getting this, as we all are, the newspapers saying this using this language like this is this huge, contagious, infectious virus or disease that, it's a pandemic. And that's interesting as well, because the word pandemic suggests that huge numbers of people are being affected by a virus. But as we know statistically, it's about, I know it varies, different accounts, it's about 0.3%, isn't it, the mortality rate? So to me,
tiny.
This is that's why it's sinister, because it's not matching up with the complete fear, Operation Fear, I call it.
Yes.
That's being.
And it's interesting because we're always keen to speak about stats, and I know last week NHS England reported 1,979 deaths directly related to COVID, with an average age being 82, and just 388 were under the age of 60.
Yeah, I read that figure. Yeah.
You're speaking about these facts. Why?
Yeah. Why? Sorry, why aren't we speaking? The media,
the mainstream media.
Because they're controlled by, they're corporate controlled, aren't they, Martin? That's why. I sort of don't want to get into a debate about how the media works, but it's something I touch on in my job as a lecturer and a teacher when we look at these type of things. But if you look into mainstream media, as we call it, you know, the big, you've got about 5 big global corporations that control all of the media, and they're literally controlled by, you can probably count them on your hand, that many people, and that is what we face. So. And what I understand now from people that are journalists as well, that talk to me privately, is that they can't be journalists anymore. Everything is templated. There's a template for everything that goes out onto the internet, and they fill in the blanks, like painting by numbers. It's like children, doesn't it? Fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And now, as we know, it's all what they call algorithms. We're hearing about this all the time. You know, they've got these techniques to make sure the news goes out in certain times with certain wording, with certain headlines, which is why you see this very sinister thing sometimes when you'll get the same news headline around the world. And that's scary, isn't it? Because what's going on here in the UK should be, by logical thought, again, critical thought, not the same as what's happening in France or America. So it's
just conditional on a massive scale, and like I've always said that Joseph Goebbels would have probably been in awe of what is going on at the moment. But you've got like corporations, even like the BBC, who have received funding from the Bill Gates Foundation. I mean, why is that? You know, they're getting all this money from the TV license fee. Why is he sending money to them? It absolutely doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But we also touched on this virus, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but the government actually said early March, I think it was the 3rd of March, that it was this virus is no longer a highly contagious infectious disease. I mean, this is a fact.
Yeah.
So why are we in the situation we are now? You know, we've had these lockdowns after lockdowns. Whatever they were trying to achieve, it clearly didn't work. And now we've got, was it hospital occupancy at like 20% lower than last year?
Yeah, yeah.
Yet we're being told of this massive strain on the NHS. It just doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up at all, and that's why I think, you know, what we're doing as I call, and I'm sorry, I think we're freedom fighters. I think if you're a freedom fighter, we all are, Martin, and we're doing it in all different ways. I think this is why we do what we do, because we want people to ask questions, don't we, about why is it, when you look at the facts and we look at the evidence in front of us, which shows that this isn't this huge risk, this non-HCID, high consequence infectious disease, isn't it? That's it. Why is it that we've had our country shut down for almost a year now, coming up to a year, which is shocking? You know, thousands, probably going into millions of people denied essential health care for long-term illnesses, treatments that they need, which is eventually going to create a higher mortality rate, actually. Excess deaths, as they call it. Why is it our children are being denied a proper education? Why are our elderly locked up? Why are young people being denied a future, as we talked about, where they have no prospects of jobs or anything, which is just makes me so angry. I mean, I'm a mother to a boy that's almost 14, and I look at what the hell has he got in front of him, you know? So our world, and I say world because it's not just here, has been robbed from us, been stolen from us, for a non-high consequence infectious disease, which, as Chris Whitty himself said, it's on video, if they haven't watched it yet, I don't know. He even said for the vast majority of the population, this is going to be very mild symptoms that are probably nothing more than cold flu symptoms. So for this, it's just, how is this proportionate that we've done this to our world? And we have to ask, and that comes back to what you're saying, that's the essential thing, isn't it, is we have to ask why. And I'm sorry, we have to ask about the politics of this, because this is, you can't just say this is a virus and a health agenda, and you can't just say it's a science agenda, because we live in a world where, especially with the NHS in this country, these institutions are controlled politically, and science is controlled politically as well. And shaped by ideology, as we know through Nazi Germany, science was shaped through ideology. So we have to ask serious questions about what is this really about? What is it they're, you know, Where are they
No.
trying to take us with this? So
Exactly. And really, if these hospitals are empty, I think NHS staff now they really should start coming out and whistleblowing, because back in March we were out there clapping them when we hitting our pots and pans and all that, because we are so lucky to have the NHS in this world. But we're hearing stories of lots of staff self-isolating and people, being told to take their leave because there's nothing to do. Suddenly you've got all this staff perhaps that maybe aren't on that pedestal anymore, and it's all going to be quiet. And we know
it's I mean, I was just going to say, it's a painful thing for me because I have a background of being, quite a pro NHS. I've done things to support the NHS before. I've campaigned to save local hospitals, local minor injuries unit, because I've always valued the NHS, and sometimes quite naively, actually, Martin, because I think sometimes, and I think you're right to point this out, is to try and worship something. And I think there's a worship kind of thing about this NHS. You can't criticize it. And we can't discuss what the problems are. And there are huge problems with the NHS, as I just said, with the whistleblower about corruption and malpractice and all sorts of things going on. And I think that's very dangerous when an institution which actually so much money goes into, and it's huge. I mean, it's as big as the Chinese army, even bigger, isn't it? It's huge, the institution.
Massive.
And I think that's why we're reaching a dangerous point, actually, because what I see happening, and videos of hospitals, the protest in London on New Year's Eve outside St Thomas's highlight is now the public are going to get, and quite rightly, angry that they're being lied to.
They are.
And unfortunately, and I really want to emphasise this, the anger shouldn't be directed at the staff.
No.
As much as some of them are, I do see the complicity, and there is a problem there. They need to speak up more. Our anger is directed at this system, this control that's coming down, that's saying this is how the NHS should work. So I just wanted to make that clear, because our anger isn't about those people. It's
and
I
think it's like in the region of 900,000 staff who aren't even on the front line. There's a lot of pen pushers and middle management on whacking great salaries, and of course they're treated exactly the same. So if there is something going on here, there's a lot of complicity in this, and it is time people started speaking out, because I think in the long term the consequences of this is going to far outweigh the virus itself. A rise in drug abuse, alcoholism, mental suicide, all these problems, because I really do believe a storm is going to brew from this. But you had someone contacted you, was it yesterday, a whistleblower, didn't you?
Yes.
More about that.
Yes, yesterday, obviously, because I've been perhaps putting out some public posts, because I feel I have to with these situations, and I think it's essential, as much as you get the abuse from it, that we get a public, which is what we're all doing, we get that public message out. So I had a response from a private response from a ex-NHS member of staff who lost their job literally a few weeks ago. She was sacked, and she wanted to tell me lots about what's going on in the NHS, and we had quite a long Facebook Messenger conversation last night, where she gave me lots of information. And she said that she's seen, and again, this is not attacking NHS members of staff, but it's recognising that there are problems sometimes with some members of staff in the NHS. She's seen problems with doctors turning up on duty that were drunk, trying to perform operations, members of staff on drugs, and astonishing things where obviously you're not in a state to even offer NHS care if you've got members of staff like that. Senior doctors she was talking to me about that couldn't be touched because no one would criticise them, that were doing these things. And then she did talk about the COVID situation as well. She said that she said it's a lie. That was her word. She said her words were "it's shit." Because I asked her, I said, is it a genuine, big problem, or is it just the normal things you get every year? And she said, no, it's, as I said, that was her words, it's shit, she said. And then I asked, well, why, if that's the case, why are the staff going along with it? She said, a lot are terrified. A lot are terrified because they're being threatened with repercussions if they speak up. And she also said there's a contingent of people that kind of enjoying, this was her words, kind of enjoying maybe the fact that they had a bit of hero kind of status this last year, which they have, and feel to keep their jobs as well, that they should get online when there's posts from trusts or whatever saying that there's a crisis, and post to agree with that, so that in terms of that slippery ladder, if you like, they can get a job and keep their careers, kind of thing. So there's a mixture of that going on, which is really, really scary. And as we know, you know, in any institution, I mean, I've worked in education, a lot of people are scared to speak up, and it's only normally a very few people that will blow the whistle. And she's one of those, which is amazing, and she's done that. But
very brave person.
Very, very brave. And what I say to people, I put this online, is if there's anyone else out there that wants to speak to us, obviously we would never ever disclose who people are. No, never. Name, but encourage them to come and tell us their stories of what's happening. Because, and this is where it's really important, Martin, we only change things by telling the truth.
Exactly.
Change starts with truth. If the word's revolution, I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, if we're going to change society, we start from that point, because then the cracks open up completely, don't they? And it all falls through them. So
I couldn't agree more. That's a brilliant statement. But I just want to touch on now, of course, after that incident at the hospital, of course, 2 days later, was it 2 days later? The police come round and arrest.
It was a day later, I think. It was a day later, yeah.
I mean, that must have been an absolute shock. So I guess there was a knock at the door late at night, was there?
Yeah, it's just to clarify that, because a lot of people thought it was early in the morning, and I want people, you know, to know the truth of what happened, because obviously on social media all sorts of stuff goes out that's not true. It can't remember what day it was, but we'd had a late night. You know, it's Christmas. We'd had a late night, and we'd had a few to drink. So we had a day where we decided to get out of bed a bit later, and I was in bed. And you know, obviously not dressed, and there was a knock at the door, and I did hear the knock at the door. My husband was up and dressed, and he said, I'm going to answer the door. And at the moment I thought, straight, you know, when something goes in your head, I thought, who's that at the door? Something triggered it. And then he came back up and he said, the police are at the door and they want to question you. So I immediately knew it was about the hospital visit. And I was quite annoyed, Martin. I was really annoyed. I said, well, tell them to go away. I'm not talking to them, I said. No. Tell them to leave. How dare they turn up at Christmas at my door? And does my husband come back up, and he said they're refusing to go. They insist that you talk to them. So got my dressing gown on, started to make my way down the stairs, and there were two officers kind of standing in the doorway. They didn't appear to have a warrant. They certainly didn't present it to us. No. Which again, you know, that is an issue. They're supposed to do that. Lots of issues with my arrest. And before I knew it, he shot up sort of halfway up the stairs, the younger officer, and just said, I'm under arrest for suspicion of a public order offence for filming in a hospital and for upsetting people. I think that was his words. That's another thing we can talk about. And then before I even had, sort of hands were just kind of pulled behind my back very aggressively, twisted my hands behind my back, slapped the handcuffs on. And that's when I said to my husband, get your phone on film, which is why you didn't catch that first bit. And you can see that altercation where we were trying to insist that I at least get dressed. Yeah, that'd be nice. Which, you know, be dragged to the station in freezing cold weather in your dressing gown. Yeah, and it was horrible. I felt, do you know what, more than anything, Martin, I was really angry. I was so angry at the ridiculousness of it, the injustice to walk into a woman's home with her family present at Christmas and do that to somebody outside her bedroom door. You know what, that just reminds me of scenes from like 1930s Germany with the Gestapo coming around. That really did. There was no need for that sort of behaviour. If they wanted to speak to you, surely they could have phoned you and asked you to come down. Exactly. And I even said that. I even said that to him as you know, as he slapped the handcuffs on. I said, can you just give me some time and I will come down to the station. There's no reason to suggest I'm not the kind of person that would do that either. You know, I haven't got a criminal record or anything like that. And it's was, you know, always been what you might call a law-abiding citizen, or what people see as respectable, whatever that means. And so it was just absurd. It was insane.
It was insane.
And,
I mean, let's face it, when you look at the video, you hardly went around trashing anything. You just walked around the hospital filming.
yeah,
So to be treated like that is well over the top. And to me, that just stinks, that does. It's clear that you must have pulled a few nerves there, and rightly so. I'd imagine maybe the hospital were desperate to try and get you in.
I mean, I don't know, do I? I can only guess and assume, but my feeling is that the hospital probably pushed for my arrest. I don't know. I won't know, will I? But
no.
Yeah.
So what happened then when you went to the police station? Was you like interviewed under caution or something, or?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's the second time I've been arrested, because I was arrested for being at a protest in November, a protest in Stroud. I was arrested for being at the protest, and for being involved was the word that they've used. So it's unfortunately, the second visit to this wonderful custody suite in Gloucester. And I say that sarcastically, because it wasn't wonderful at all. I wasn't treated very well at all. And to be honest, I was quite savvy to it this second time around, because the first time I didn't know, obviously, what on earth to expect. I'd never been through anything like that in my life before.
No.
And what I did on the first occasion was I read the 100-page code of practice. When they kept me in the cells for 6 hours, I made the use of the time so that I was very informed about my rights, what they're supposed to do. So this time around, I was a lot more familiar. And when I arrived, they have, and hopefully you've never known anything like this either, Martin, but they have a little kind of holding bay, like a little white room. It's literally like room 101. It's just like a bright white room. It's like, and you sit in there, and there's an officer on either side of these glass doors watching you. And they're not supposed to hold you in those situations for more than half an hour.
Wow.
And they held me for an hour with my hands cuffed behind my back.
Oh, that's
and I knew at the time, I thought, this is psychological.
Yeah,
this is
bullying.
Trying to upset me. So when they finally let me out to go through the custody process, which is they read out the charge, the supposed charge, and they take all your items, not that I had any, because I've been obviously just got out of bed, and they do a body search, like a scanner, which was done properly on this occasion. They read out the charge to me. And what I did, which is what you're supposed to do, all good lawyers always say to you, unless, you know, in that situation, if you don't understand the legalities, which of course I didn't, because until you've gone through with a lawyer in terms of exactly what you're being charged with, you say you do not understand. And I said, I do not understand. No. And his instant response, which is very, very telling about what we're facing at the moment, his instant response was, I have to get a responsible adult for you.
What?
Implying that I had mental health issues or disabilities that I would not understand. And as the evening progressed in the police station, I was put into the cell. They kept refusing to let me see the custody nurse because my hands blew up. They swelled up from being in cuffs for so long. Finally got to see the custody nurse after having to make a huge amount of fuss, ringing the bell constantly, which I'm sure they're going to suggest was mental health issues as well, that I kept ringing the bell. You know, it can all be used against you. Was eventually, I couldn't arrange legal representation at that point, because I phoned two lawyers that I was aware of that work in London, that normally work with protest law. And of course, there was this discrepancy because it was under a criminal law charge. So I couldn't find legal representation. I didn't want to use the duty solicitor. You don't use duty solicitors. They work with the police. They're not impartial. So I refused. And I said, look, all we can do then, if you insist on interviewing me, is that I will decline to answer any of your questions. And I told them this. And they proceeded eventually. They interviewed me. It only went on for 10 minutes because I think they could clearly see it was a waste of their time and mine. And I kept repeating, you haven't allowed me to arrange legal representation. I'm not in a position to answer these questions. And I also protested at that point that they brought in this third-party person from a charity, which I found incredibly offensive, Martin, I really did, to sit there, and they put her name on my records as my responsible adult. It was
Unbelievable.
absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
And because I was quite savvy to this, I kept saying on the audio recording, I do not consent to this woman being here, just because I have said that I don't understand the legalities. So I think at that point they realised they were in a bit of a corner, and they decided to stop.
Yeah.
And then took me back to the cell, and then they released me about half an hour later without charge.
Wow.
And that I have to go back on the 21st for another interview with legal.
Wow. I mean, it's clear that the police are political now. I mean, I've served actually as a constable for Wiltshire Constabulary, but I can see locally now they become politicised. They pick on the easy targets. They won't go after real crime or anything.
No.
And using techniques like this is absolutely disgusting. They're making out like you robbed a bank or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're just trying to intimidate you, to silence you. It's so obvious.
Yes,
you know?
it's political policing. And I'm sorry, I did say at one point, and they didn't like that. I said, you're acting like the Gestapo, and of course they didn't like that, but it's the truth. Wow. Acting like a political police. And the other thing, Martin, as well, and I want to say this because this is so important and it's shocking, is I was forced to give a DNA sample.
Oh yeah.
I said to them, I don't consent to this. And he said, well, you've got no choice. And I said, well, what's going to happen if I refuse then? They said, well, this was the words of the custody officer, we will hold you down and force you if you refuse.
That is outrageous.
So I had to do it. And I had to give my fingerprints as well, like a criminal. And I had to do the whole mugshot thing, the mugshot thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was astonishing.
And let's just revisit though. What did you do? You went and filmed a hospital. Let's put it in perspective, and that you get treated like that. They did nothing but, it sounds like, bully you. Bullying. It was bullying. And and the awful thing is, Martin, there were smirks on some of their faces throughout the process, which I found completely very offensive, that they thought they didn't see the seriousness of what they were doing in terms of the situation we're living in. And the thing is, a lot of them are conditioned as well, though. And like I say, they're actually selected because of their political ideologies. And I know that from personal experience, because I've been... back in the summer, I was targeted by the police, as people will know, and I've got a case on with the Wiltshire police at the moment. And they just bully the easy targets. They won't go out and do any real crime work, really. They'll sort out the burglaries and things. And when they can abuse their powers like this, it is sickening. It's absolutely sickening. And I can imagine that's what it probably was like, the brown shirts in the 1930s. And once again, we're seeing history repeat itself.
Absolutely, and,
it's got to be highlighted and whistleblown, really. But so, what is your plans going forward for the future?
Gosh, I don't know, actually. The strange thing is, I think people think when you're an activist, as we are, freedom fighters, whatever you want to call ourselves, that we have a big plan. I don't have a grand plan, really. I just do whatever's coming. I kind of just go with it, really, as I did with the hospital filming at the time. I thought it was the right thing to do. I mean, I am active, and there's things coming up that this year, I keep saying next year, it's this year now. There's things coming up. There's various movements, I'm sure you're aware, that have formed that are looking to put people up for political office. And even, I mean, that's another discussion about how corrupt that is, we know, but it's about getting a kind of a profile, a bigger profile, by using that to get our issues on the agenda. So all that's going to be happening this year. But I feel which is why I think this is really important, what's happened to me, actually. If we don't start doing these things more now, it's only going to get harder. Because as you mentioned, Nazi Germany, we know that once it becomes more violent, more repressive, then these kind of actions that we're performing we won't be able to do anything at all. And and also I think this is the important message from what's happened to me, and I hope people listen to this. Whether you agree with the COVID situation, that all that we're talking about is irrelevant, because what you should be looking at and very concerned with is that we've reached a point where the law and due process can be abused, where that boundary, which is essential to democracy in a free world, between your private space, your home, and the public space outside, doesn't exist anymore, which is what happened to me. It's like I don't have a private space now. You can come up to my bedroom.
You were violated big time.
violate, and that should send chills through people's spine. It really should, because if they're doing that to me, what I say to people is, don't you think they're going to start doing that to you as well?
Yeah.
And that's,
They use you as an example.
yeah, that's what's coming. And I think unless we all get out there and start doing more and fighting this year, we're going to see a lot more of what's happened to me. I think.
So people need to just grow a backbone now. I mean, this isn't just for us, for our kids' future. Is this a sort of world we want them to leave, and our grandchildren to be treated like this?
Exactly.
People are talking about health passports and things. If you don't have the vaccine and things like that, you can't do this, that, and the other. This is unbelievable, and it's got to stop. We can't just give our freedoms away that people shed blood for and died for just for something like this.
No,
people need to wake up.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's as I said, it doesn't get easier if we don't all act now. And what I say is, I think there's a lot of people actually that are awake. I talk to lots of people, as I'm sure you do, Martin, on the streets and through the various things that I do. A lot of people know that this is being used as an agenda and it doesn't add up. But they're scared, and I understand they're scared. But you know what? If we don't do something now, there's going to be a lot more to flipping well fear. I mean, it's it's very sinister in the sense of, I'm not going to get into things that people might class as conspiracy theory, but this is a eugenic agenda. Yeah, it's eugenics in the sense of, it's moving between different sort of groups and communities of the people that are seen as undesirable, that perhaps they want to get rid of or cleanse in some way. Ethnic, genetic cleansing, like they did in Nazi Germany. And I think that's what we need to see, is that process is what's folding out, and it's been done through this agenda of, having to have vaccines and having to have a medical response to this virus.
For everybody's safety. But the thing is that what people need to understand is the technology is definitely there. We don't even see half of the real technology. We get amazed by things coming out every day, but I mean, that's just a tip of the iceberg. So, what really going on, it could be really anything. So people should be concerned about that. And there's no doubt that there's some sort of something going on to force us into some sort of control. We can see that. My biggest fear is there's going to be mass employment next year, and people are going to be shoved onto like universal credit, and then we'll all just be slaves to the to this system, really. They've killed off all the businesses through this. It could quite easily happen. So now is a more important time than any time in our history to, grow a pair and just question things. That's what people need to do, is ask questions. Don't believe what you see on the mainstream media, because they've got an agenda. But actually do your own research and question things. Because what I hate as well, when you get trolls online, they lecture you about something, but they're there all day watching Netflix and rubbish on telly, going watching football and stuff. They don't spend the time to research. So who the hell are they to start putting us down? For people like you and I, who actually go out of our way to look at things. So that's why people need to question things.
Yeah, exactly. And as I say to people, who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust someone that's doing journalism for nothing? They don't get paid for it. Or are you going to trust a big corporate structure where it's all about money? Use your common sense here. Which person do you trust? People that do things for nothing clearly haven't got a financial agenda there, have they? So
exactly.
I'd rather listen to you than I would, whatever it is, newspaper. So
well, there's more important things in life than money, and the preservation of our heritage and the future for our children is worth more than absolutely anything at all. But I just want to really thank you, Debbie, for taking this time out to speak to me. Because I know I've had loads of messages. People are desperate to hear your side of the story. And I just want to thank you for all that hard work that you've done. People think you're really brave and inspiring, and you've certainly inspired a lot of people. So I just want to thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you. No, it's as I keep saying to people, it's not a matter of choice. We have to do it. That's how I see it. Is just having to do this. So
it's become a duty now, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you're a parent, I don't know if you've got kids, but if you're a parent as well, not that it's just about my kids, it's about all of our. That's how you see it when you're a parent. It's about the kids, isn't it? And how can we sit back and let our our children have this future. I can't do it. I really can't.
No, absolutely not. Well, you take care, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon. And
yes.
Please keep us updated with what happens with your case.
Yes.
And I know people will be desperate to hear.
21st of January, so not long. I've got to go back in for a police interview, so that will be key. Yeah. I'll let people know.
No, fantastic. And in this video, I'll put a link to your page, Debbie, so people can follow you and keep up to speed with what's going on.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And thanks, Martin. Yeah. Nice to finally meet you. Speak to you.
You too.
Okay. All right. Okay. Bye, Martin. Bye. Bye.